Yeah. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacey Baker. I'm a local exercise physiologist, and that just means I spend way too much time studying exercise and how it affects the human body. Today we're going to talk about sleep. My goal is to keep you awake during this lecture, but educate you on how to get better sleep when I'm not up here lecturing. So what we're going to do today is just talk about a couple different topics. One, why is sleep so important? And why do we feel like it's the one thing that we can always push to the side or not utilize? Why do we feel like we can get away with 4 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep, when adults need 7 to 8 in order to function properly? Just because you can get away with 4 to 6 hours of sleep a night doesn't mean that you should. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Then we'll go into the different stages of sleep. So not only do we want you to get quality sleep, but how's that work? What different stages do you need to get to in order to get the most quality, refreshing, revitalizing sleep? Then we'll identify some bad habits that you may have as far as your sleep hygiene goes, and a couple different ways you can combat that. We'll probably skip that little video, and then we'll give you some additional tips. So why are we talking about sleep? Like I said, nobody likes to sit down and talk about sleep. When was the last time you talked about sleep? Last night at dinner? Friday night when you were out with your friends? Probably not. But you've probably talked about how little sleep you've gotten. Like, oh, I worked a double this day, only got a couple hours of sleep. Oh, my kid's sick, I only got a few hours of sleep. It is very, very important that you get 7 to 8 hours, and I'm going to tell you why. Sleep needs to jump up on that priority list of your health concerns. So some of the influences that sleep has, and probably the biggest, is your brain function, as well as emotional well-being. So when you're sleeping, your brain's doing a lot of repair work. It's growing, it's developing new pathways to help you learn better. It's developing pathways to help you bank memories, build memories, retain memories. And it also helps you pay attention during the day when you're awake. It helps you go through that process of making good decisions. And it also helps you be a little bit creative. Now, those are probably all pretty important things for you and your job, right? I put up a couple pictures of Albert Einstein because we all know how smart he was, right? Pretty intelligent guy. He was a firm believer in sleep, and he knew that he needed specifically roughly 10 hours of sleep to perform his best. He was not only a phenomenal mathematician, but he was also creative, played the violin, and much more. So we need to take a little cue off of Albert Einstein here. Sleep also influences your physical health. So not just your brain, not just your well-being, but your physical health. If you're not getting the right amount of sleep, your risk for developing chronic diseases increases quite a bit. So sleep's involved in healing and repairing actual body parts, your heart, your blood vessel. Again, when you power down for the night, just like you shut off your computers, you shut off your machines, that's the time that your body goes to work on repairing all of its organs and blood vessels. It also helps maintain that delicate balance of hormone levels. And I'm not going to get into this too much, but there's a whole science behind how hormones interact in your body, and sleep helps regulate them. It also helps with your growth hormone too, and that's important. And also your immune system. The better sleep you get, we're not talking necessarily about more, although a lot of people need more sleep. It's the quality of sleep that you get that's going to help keep your immune system strong so you can fight off illness. So you're probably thinking, all right, this all makes sense. I know this, kind of a no-brainer. I need sleep. I don't get it. What's the big deal? What's the repercussions? Well, it's a big, big, big deal. In fact, we're not just talking about, let me back up a minute. When we talk about sleep deprivation, there's a whole gamut that can be run there. And you're going to fall somewhere on that scale. Maybe you're just missing an hour or so a night than what you need. And then maybe you're missing, huge chunks of sleep time consistently. So even if you're someone that's just kind of on the verge of not getting enough sleep periodically, all the way to someone who may suffer from insomnia and maybe doesn't get but just a couple hours of sleep a night, we're all talking about the same thing. Doesn't matter where you fall on that scale, all of these issues can affect you. So again, what's the worst that could happen if you don't get enough sleep? Well, a couple different things. One, your performance declines. And like I said earlier, your chances or your risk of developing chronic disease increases. And if you can prevent that just by getting a little extra sleep, that's a lot less expensive than medical bills. It goes further in the long run. So several nights of losing sleep, like I said, even if it's just 1 to 2 hours, creates a big deficit in your performance. There's also something called microsleep. Have you guys ever maybe just missed a couple hours of your morning where you didn't really know what was going on? You can't remember what you did or where you were? Just kind of those little lapses in your memory. How about the drive to work? All of a sudden you're here. How'd I get here? I don't really remember the drive. Microsleep is just that. It's your sleeping kind of when you're awake. So you're losing bits of time. A lot of people are at risk for sleep deficiency, sleep deprivation. The more complicated your job, the more sleep is required. So here I put an example, a great example is that drowsy drivers may feel capable of driving, but that doesn't mean that they are. Studies show that sleep deficiency harms your driving ability as much or more than being drunk. That's scary. Not even if you're in a car, but if you're at work, if you're with your family, things that you do day to day, if you are sleep deprived, there's a risk there. Also, people that can be affected, it's everyone, but mostly you'll find it in healthcare workers. People in hospitals typically do quite long stretches. Pilots, students, lawyers, mechanics, line workers tend to be the highest risk populations. So again, what's the worst that could happen? Well, some pretty big stuff happened when people weren't on their game. For example, did anybody remember Chernobyl? Nuclear disaster? Somebody fell asleep. This is scary stuff. The Challenger explosion, NASA documented some mechanical error, but they also logged that the managers on that project were coming in just on a couple hours of sleep. Wow. Lives cost here. The Exxon Valdez oil spill. Sleep deprivation. Somebody fell asleep at the wheel. The repercussions can be huge. They're as small on a daily basis, such as just small accidents, forgetfulness, all the way up to impacting lives of other people. So it's very, very important, and I want you to keep that in mind as we keep talking here. So what's sleep really? Does anybody really think about sleep when they're sleeping? No, not really. But I can tell you a little bit about the 5 stages of sleep, and there's some that are more important than others. It takes about 90 minutes for an adult to pass through all 5 stages. That's on average. You may not even get to some of these stages. But the first stage, the first few stages is called NREM, and that's not the most restful sleep. But that first stage is just when you're drifting off. Maybe right now, your eyes are getting a little heavy. Your breathing's starting to slow down. Wow, she's really boring. Now we're starting to ease into stage 1. It's not refreshing, it's not restorative. In fact, you could wake up really quick. I wish I had a book. I'd smack it on the table. That'd get you awake. The second stage is a little bit the same. The eye movement starts to slow down a little bit. Have you ever checked in on Grandpa when he's sleeping in the chair and you can see his eyes under his lids moving around? That's kind of what these stages of sleep are. However, stage 2, while, like that last bullet point, while it's better than being awake, it's not the best kind of sleep you can get. If you happen to be an older adult or you've developed some chronic disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, you will often stay in stage 2. So regardless of how long you're sleeping, you're not sleeping great. Does that make sense so far? Okay, try not to get too sciencey here. Stage 3 and 4 overlap a little bit. That's called our priority sleep. We really want that sleep because now we have dialed down enough that our body starts to focus on repairing itself. So that's where it comes in, that our muscles, bones, joints are healing from our day-to-day microtraumas. And then stage 4, we're not going to read all those bullet points. It gets a little sciencey, but stage 4 is where we start to regulate hormones. Okay, that's a good place to be too. And as we move to stage 5, that's our deepest dream sleep. That picture is my fiance Clint and our dog Rhino. They are best buddies, and they happen to find the most relaxing sleep when they're together. So I had to add that picture today. But stage 5, of course, is where you're very deep in the sleep. That's when your heart rate starts to increase just a little. Your breathing becomes shallow and irregular. This is almost like a death sleep. You really got to shake that person awake. And again, I put here, the more complicated your job, the more you really need to protect this kind of sleep. Do the things you need to do to get through the stages of sleep so that you're at a stage where you can rest well and get that restorative power. So I added in this quote because I love it. Have the courage for the great sorrows of life and the patience for the small ones. And when you have laboriously accomplished your daily task, go to sleep in peace. It just sounds nice, right? Go to sleep in peace. God is awake. I like to think he's on the clock when I'm not. So here's some bad habits that we're just going to run through real quick. Make a mental note if one or more of these happens to pertain to you. Inactivity is probably one of the biggest prohibitors of good sleep. You need to be as physically drained as you are mentally and emotionally. And don't always assume that mental is stress and physical is labor. You know, those kind of weave in and out together. But it's a big deal to make sure that if you have a stressful job, make sure you're getting in some activity outside of work. And I mentioned this to the other groups too. If your job involves a lot of labor, physical labor, that means when we're talking about exercise, we're going to add that exercise to your day. And you're probably thinking, really? You want me to exercise after a long day on the job? Yes. What happens is your body gets used to that exhausting work on the line. And if you're not exercising, you're not sleeping well, that's a vicious cycle. You just get more tired. You show up the next day, you're tired, and the next day you're tired. Where if you add maybe just 30 minutes of exercise a day for the sole purpose of fitness, you will sleep better. You will be awake and more productive during the day with that little bit of exercise. And I love this. Try it. If you don't notice better quality of sleep, more stamina, slimmer waistline, and a better mood, go back to being grumpy and don't exercise. But give it a try, because you'll see those benefits. Overeating and indigestion. Do you guys know anybody like that? It's a big health risk. Your body, when you overeat or you have indigestion, it's really working hard. I mean, your body's taxed to try to digest that food, to manage that amount of calories. And that's going to impact your sleep. That rolls into a whole metabolism talk that I could spend days on. But you want to avoid overeating because that is a huge lifestyle-related issue that you can change to increase your quality of sleep. And then there's overstimulation. We're talking cell phones ringing, pagers going. Do we still have pagers these days? Okay, pagers. Whew. Feeling old there. Machines making noises, bright lights flickering, all of those things that can just overstimulate you during the day will make it more difficult for you to dial down and rest in the evening. So you want to try to limit that as much as you can, because like that last bullet point says, your brain can't just turn off. You brush your teeth, you jump in bed, you can't turn it off. It has to slowly come down. Excessive worrying. This whole slide is my mother. Worrying about things that you cannot control affects your sleep. My dad in particular, for some reason, he watches the news right before bed. When is the news not depressing? Right? That's not something you want to watch right before you go to bed. He lays awake and he worries and he worries and he worries. So I put there, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So sometimes maybe addressing your worries, your anxieties, your stress, it may not be neurology or pharmacology. It might just be sitting in silence, taking a few moments to meditate, a few moments to prayer, but just easing that worry. Does anybody have a schedule like this? Oh, I thought I was the only one. Hectic schedules. Your body loves consistency. And maybe you do too, maybe you don't, maybe you like variety. But this kind of variety is not good for you. Way too much involved on that calendar right there. So the constant maneuvering of schedules and running here and running there and the lack of consistency kills the sleep. Here's a couple other bad habits: caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol. Coffee, the most widely used drug on the planet. So who's got coffee right now? Okay. Yep, I already had my 2 cups today. Getting ready to work on a third. Have you ever noticed your fellow coworkers that drink coffee, they get to be a little irritable if they don't have it? It's a drug. Sometimes you might notice that you get nervous or shaky, and those are things that really amp you up during the day that still makes it difficult to dial down in the evening. So those are good to just avoid as best you can. And here's some bedroom blunders. Think of the Princess and the Pea, or Goldilocks, the temperature of your bedroom. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? The light. Is there a night light outside on your garage shining right inside your window? Noise level. Do you have kids down the hall? Do you have pets downstairs? What are some things that are keeping you awake? Clutter, pets. Do you have the right bed? My mom said there's a lot of things you should invest in and not worry about the cost. Your teeth, your tennis shoes, good peanut butter, and a good mattress. My mom's a smart lady. Gotta have a good bed. Also space, and how can we forget spouse? Do they snore? This can go for guys and girls. Do they have twitchy legs, the restless leg syndrome, where they're just, kicking a little bit each night? Or do they flop around like a fish, steal the covers? Those are all things that are going to impact your sleep. And then there's napping. Thankfully, this is not a mirror image right now. Thanks for staying alert. Daytime naps. They're a good thing and a bad thing. Just depends on how you utilize them. Naps are great if they're not too long. If you start to get into those deeper stages of sleep, you're really going to have trouble getting it together when you wake up. So usually keeping naps around 30 minutes is best. Call them little power naps. And try to avoid doing that after 3 o'clock. Anybody nap on their lunch break? A little bit? Okay. Just checking. All right, and pill popping. Now the reason I have this slide on there is it's allergy season. Are you taking antihistamines? Are you taking decongestants? Anything over the counter that's just trying to regulate all those allergies, or maybe you have asthma. All types of drugs can really impact how you sleep, including some of those. Blood pressure medications, pain meds, maybe you have a migraine every now and then. If you think a migraine's going to keep you up, the medicine might too. There's just a list. So I highly recommend, if you're prescribed something or you purchase something over the counter, do a little research. You'd be surprised at some of the side effects. All right, we're going to skip this. How are we doing on time? All right. So how do I get it right? Now you're all like scared, right? You're really ready to get some good sleep. It's the scare tactic. My dad used it when I was growing up. I think it worked well, so I'm trying it out on you. So the whole goal today is, how can we get our autonomic nervous system to just dial down, just to ease down in the evening so that you can get restful sleep. There's a couple great ways to do that. And we're not going to practice them today because you will fall asleep, but I definitely recommend that you try them at home. The first is progressive muscle relaxation. Has anybody ever heard of that? Okay, one. So then this is good. If you are laying in bed, eyes are closed, you are relaxed, you start thinking about your toes, relaxing the toes, your ankles. Your ankles are nice and loose, relaxed and heavy. Your legs, and you just start moving up the body, just relaxing each muscle, each limb, until you get to the head and you should be asleep. I'd love to see how far you get. Breathing exercises. Really get in control on that slow, deep breathing. You'd be surprised at that rhythmic breathing, how easy it is to fall asleep. Maybe or maybe not if it's your spouse next to you breathing. You know, sometimes they may be able to put you to sleep. Sometimes they may keep you up. Yoga and meditation's a great option if you have the time. But I really like just some quiet time. I go to bed. I don't think about my next day, but I'm in the moment, thinking about my breathing, say my nightly prayers, out like a babe. The next two slides sound a little bit complicated, but they're not. Stimulus control therapy is just reassociating what your bedroom's for. Your bedroom and your bed equals sleep. So no TVs in the bedroom, right? You don't want to read when you're in bed. Your bedroom's for sleeping. I mean, it could be for other things, but primarily it's for sleeping. It's for rest. These, not good for the bedroom. Anything with lights, your alarm clock, turn those around. Just really get your brain focused on, I'm getting ready for bed, and I sleep in my comfortable bed in my bedroom. No work. Don't do work in bed. No fun. How about cognitive behavioral therapy? This is pretty easy. Just think of it as a bundle package. Everything we just said, you're doing it all together, and it's working beautifully for you. So now you have all of your do's and don'ts of sleep hygiene. You're going to really work on associating your bedroom with and your bed with sleep. And then sleep restriction therapy, that's pretty neat. I'm just going to briefly touch on that because we're close on time. Sleep restriction therapy is if you're one of those people that says, I am good with 3 to 4 hours of sleep, you're not. But what sleep restriction therapy does is make sure that during that 3 or 4 hours, you get good sleep. You're sleeping. So you don't want to be kind of awake, kind of asleep, kind of awake, going to the bathroom, back in bed. You really want to practice and work hard at allowing yourself to sleep that 3 to 4 hours. When you're in a constant habit of that, just extend it by half an hour. And when you're sleeping well for 4.5, add another half an hour. And slowly build up to where you're getting 7 to 8. Your body will appreciate it. A couple other things that may help you get to sleep. These are herbal remedies. There's some supplements that you can get at health food stores. I really enjoy a sleepy time tea at night. If I had a stressful day, to sit down with a warm or hot tea really makes me feel de-stressed and a lot better about my day and getting to sleep. So there's a couple examples that you can utilize if you like. And what now? You've got all this information. What now? Well, now you have to put it into practice. So you have to start developing a regular bedtime routine. Hopefully everybody brushes their teeth. Hopefully you're putting on a comfy pair of pajamas. Your room is dark, your kids are down, pets are away, and you're developing a consistent routine at night. You can increase exposure to bright sunlight. In the summer, this works great. Maybe some of you actually get up when it's dark. If that's the case, get the lights on right away. That alarm goes off, light is on. Your body recognizes that light and says, okay, we've got to get moving. We got to get rolling for the day. Spend time outdoors in the late afternoon. The sun going down cues your body to slowly dial down a bit. We're going to roll through some of these I have already mentioned. We already talked about naps. Don't fall into the nap trap. Warm baths help. Get a grip on your worries. Have a light snack. Avoid liquids. Kind of a no-brainer, right? Avoid work within 2 hours of bedtime. This is always a big one. We're always trying to get as much done as we can in a day, right? Oh, if only there were 26 hours in a day. No, there's not, and that's not going to change. So what you have to do is manage your time better so that you can get better sleep. Invest in quality bedding, just say no to electronics. And I like this one, pretend you're royalty and sleep alone. If you have a spouse that's messing up your sleep schedule, they can't be offended if you say, you know what, I'll be down the hall. Here's a card to the local sleep clinic. Get them some help. You help them, they help you. So don't be afraid to get out of that situation until you can remedy it. A lot of the resources today came out of a book by Mary O'Brien. She's fantastic. It's an easy to read book. It's short. It's actually a continuing education credit for me, but she speaks in a way that just makes sense. So if you ever want to read that book, I highly recommend it. Some of the other information came from the National Sleep Foundation and the American Sleep Association. Now, if you're thinking, I did good, got my card punched, got through a lecture with this crazy lady, all is good. Not quite. We have a quiz. Oh man, you guys just freaked out. It's okay, it's not really a quiz. What it is, it's the Epworth Sleep Scale. If you think that you're doing okay on your amount of sleep, go ahead and take this little quiz. You can take it home or you can do it now. It's maybe 6 questions. Not too hard. But this is a sleep test that's used in research studies globally. This is a no-joke, sophisticated test. And it's going to rate your sleepiness. And based on that scale at the end, it's going to give you a good indication whether or not you should start talking to a doctor or someone at a sleep clinic to help you find better ways to get the quality rest that you need. My clicker jumped away. So I highly recommend just doing that in your spare time and really see where you fall on that sliding scale. So does anybody have any questions? Surely that was riveting. You are pumped full of information, but you got to have a question. Somebody has to have a question.
Can we start this more sleep after the NBA finals?
Oh. You know what? I will say this. It kind of relates to a question we had yesterday, and it was, can I catch up on sleep? So if I know I'm heading into a long week, can I use the next week to catch up? And the answer is very complicated. Yes and no. Yes, being that if you're just going to lose sleep over a couple days, then yeah, you can get that sleep back. You just have to have more quality sleep in the next few weeks. It takes a lot longer to get it back than it does to lose it. However, if you are constantly sleep deprived, like I said, even if it's just an hour, 30 minutes, or whatever a night, all the way to 4 hours a night, if that's long term, you cannot make that up. Your body can't make it up. Your brain tells you, I can adapt to 4 hours a night. And you may think you can, but no, you can't. Physically, you can't. Does that make sense a little bit? Any other questions? Really? Come on, one. Throw me one. I need one. One question. No? All right, well, to our one question guy, you get some sleepy time tea. Don't drink it at work. All right, well, thanks for your time today, everybody. Hope you're a little more educated on sleep.